今日嚟思想一個題目，有壓力是好還是無好咧？
Let's talk about the topic today entitled, Is pressure good or no good?
咱常常聽個人講，你有你壓力，我有我嘅壓力。
We often hear of people saying that you have your pressures, I have mine.
少年人有少年人嘅壓力，老人有老人嘅壓力。
And young people have their own pressures, and the older people have their own pressures as well.
未結婚嘅人有壓力，結婚嘅人也是有壓力。
Unmarried people have their own pressures, and married people have pressures as well.
做生意嘅人有壓力，做牧師嘅人也是有壓力。
Businessmen have pressures, and pastors have pressures too.
這個世界只係棺材裏面嘅人冇壓力。
And in this world, only people who are lying in the caskets do not have any pressures at all.
哇！這個話聽咧，讓你感覺千無壓力。
Now, when you hear of these kind of words, it makes you even more pressured.
但是你知影無？
But do you know what?
聖經無用壓力這個字嚟講咱嘅心內困難。
The Bible doesn't use the word pressure to describe the difficulties of our
咱唔
hearts.
是無壓力，
It's not that we do not have pressures,
先用重擔 burden 這個字，
but the Bible uses this word burden.
先用 burden 嚟代替你嘅壓力，
The Bible uses burden to represent our pressures,
因為這個是比較正面、比較 positive 嘅辦法。
because this is a more positive way of looking at it.
因為唔是兩種嘅 burden 都是派嘅
Because it's not that all pressures are
all the
bad.
burdens, not all the burden is bad。
Not all burdens are bad.
如果你 burden 是幫助你嗰個係成熟、嗰個係進步，
There are some burdens that help you to grow, to become more mature.
這個裏面有真多款嘅 burden。
And there are a lot of different kinds of burdens in the Bible.
是出埃及記第1章11節，埃及人派督工管下因，加登大可下因，要為法老建造兩座石盒，就是比東及蘭西，這是耕作嘅登大。
The Egyptians put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. And this is the burden of work.
這是耕作裏面嘅登大。
This is the burden from work.
詩篇第38篇第4節，我嘅罪孽掛喺我嘅頭，和我嘅登大叫我擔袂起，這是罪嘅登大。
My guilt has overwhelmed me like a burden too heavy to bear. And this is the burden of sin.
犯罪有罪嘅登大壓在咱嘅生命嘅中間。
When you sin, there is the burden of sin upon our lives.
馬太第11章28節，凡勞苦擔登大人，通過到我這裏，我和你得到安息。這是心靈上面嘅登大。
Matthew 11:28, Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This is the burden of heart and soul.
嚟到耶穌頭前呢，登大就交我上帝。
But when you come before the Lord Jesus, you must entrust your burdens to the Lord.
哥林多後書第11章28節，除了外口嘅代志，還有真教會所關心嘅代志，特別壓住我嘅成就，這是樹紅頂面嘅登大。
2 Corinthians 11:28 says, Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. This is the burden of ministry.
原來樹紅上帝有真罪登大。
We see that when you serve God, there are also a lot of burdens.
這個世界充滿咗無神嘅登大。
Now this world is filled with all different kinds of burdens.
冇一個人有通避免面對登大。
And no one is able to avoid burdens.
但是你有通喺登大中間畫出真正好嘅代志。
But you are able to live a very good life even in the midst of all the burdens.
咱用壓力讓你更加了解。
And let us use the pressure, and let us take a look at pressure for you to understand it more.
原來壓力幫助一個人嘅成長，
We see that pressure helps us grow up.
壓力幫助人一個人成熟，
Pressure helps us mature.
壓力幫助一個人成功。
Pressure helps us succeed.
所以唔是每一種嘅壓力，每一種嘅 pressure 都是派嘅。
So we see that not every kind of pressure is bad.
我哋只有認識嘅壓力，
It depends on how you use the pressure.
壓力只有幫助人成長呢。
How does pressure help us grow?
我講成長嘅意思唔是長大，而是長進。
When I talk about growth, I'm not talking about physical growth, but growth as a person.
長大及長進是兩個完全無同嘅代志。
Growing up and growth or progress are two different things.
這個人有夠日嘅食物，有營養，有水，有休息，這個人自然嘅成長。
If a person takes enough food, nutrients, water, and enough rest, this person will naturally grow up.
這是 physically 咱嘅身軀裏面嘅長大，
Now, this is physical growth.
但是長大無代表長進。
But growing up doesn't mean that the person is indeed growing.
有人20-30歲，攬住一個囡仔，
There are some people who are like in their 20s to 30s, but they are like a child.
伊嘅思想、伊嘅行為、伊嘅品格真在幼稚，
Their thoughts, their behaviors, and their characters are very immature.
這是無長進嘅人。
This is a person who has not grown at
所以
all.
保羅講兄弟啊，喺心智嘅頂面唔通做細漢囡仔。
That is why Paul said, brothers, stop thinking like children.
什麼是 stop thinking like children？
What does it mean to stop thinking like children?
哥林多教會所說嘅物件就是冤家紛爭紛鬥。
And the church at Corinth was involved in a lot of quarreling, dissension, and factions.
講到係囡仔所說嘅物
And
件。
all of these things are things that children do.
Stop thinking like children。
咱就停止思想親像這樣嘅
咱嘅屬靈嘅生命未長大，
Our spiritual lives cannot grow.
咱需要進步。
We need to grow.
所以保羅哋如果所述第4章13、14節講，佇頂高，咱哋正人佇真道頂面同歸第一，連不上帝家，得以長大成年，模糊基督長成嘅善良，後官無過再雖然見下咯，最後人嘅詭計及欺騙嘅法術。
Ephesians 4 verses 13 to 14 says, Until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ, then we will no longer be infants by the cunning and craftiness of men in their deceitful scheming.
所以咱知影咱需要長進，
So we know that we all need to grow.
需要成長，
We need to grow up.
但係最後追究呢，
But how can we attain that?
壓力幫助咱長進。
Pressure is going to help us grow.
呢隻聖經是婚姻一個真正重要嘅秘訣。
And this verse is a very important secret to marriage.
人離開父母及妻子聯合，兩個人就做一體。
A man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.
三大字，
Three things.
離開父母
Leaving your parents,
及妻子聯合，
be united to your
兩個人
wife,
就做一體。
and the two will become one flesh.
三英文字
And three
，living,
English words.
cleaving and becoming。
Three English words, living, cleaving, and becoming.
婚姻頭一個秘訣頭一大字，living your parents。
The first thing or the first secret to marriage is to離開父母。
為什麼婚姻需要離開父母？
Why is it that in a marriage you need to leave your parents?
人自然有一個依賴嘅性情在裏面。
Because it is very natural for a man to have this tendency to depend on others.
父母是咱細漢囡仔到大漢倚靠嘅對象。
And parents are the object of our dependence since we were still small kids.
咱習慣了啦，
And it has become a habit for
任
us.
何發生什麼大事，
No matter what happens,
頭一個去找父母。
first thing we do is go to our parents.
我已經是三個囡仔嘅老爸，
I am a father of 3 kids.
點解細漢囡仔細漢嘅時陣，
Used to be that when my kids were still small,
早起來，
when they wake up in the morning,
車冇 uniform，媽媽衫咧，
when they wake up in the morning, they couldn't find their uniforms. Mom, where's my uniform?
媽會咧，
Mom, where are my shoes?
媽會咩咧？
Mom, where are my socks?
依家啲冇去車，
And they don't look for it
你當中
themselves.
靠這個老爸老母，
They all rely on the father or the mother.
即自然咧。
And this is something that's natural.
但是咱歸死啊，
But it has become a habit for
這
us.
個老爸老母是咱通話靠真信任嘅對象。
And as a result, our father and our mother has become the people or the objects of our dependence.
但你結婚以後，
After you get married,
你早起來嘅時
you
陣，
wake up in the morning,
你車冇衫咩做？
and what if you don't find your
媽
clothes?
媽我嘅衫咧，
Mother, where are my clothes?
你老母冇喺你嘅鼻頭啊，
But your mother is not around.
這是你嘅太太啊。
This is your wife.
媽媽我會咧，我咩咧？
Mother, where are my shoes, my socks?
所以你想離開你嘅父母，
That is why you need to leave your parents.
好你知影什麼叫做獨立嘅生活。
So that you will understand what it is to live an independent life.